And yeah, before I start, I would really like to thank the project because the BIM contract project, actually, because of this project, we can really hold this workshop in this nice location. And also, I mean, this is a very, thank you. So yeah, so actually this project had already run like a 3 year and it's already ended, but because my PhD is still ongoing with this research, so yeah, I mean, this project was like together with some company, also with TU Win. They also did like two project, one called BIM Design and one is called FM Chain. Yeah, so firstly, I would like to talk about my background. So firstly, the reason why I do this research is more like in the data security. So because as you know, data security, traceability, process automation are actually needed in the construction management. And we actually figured out that like a smart contract is a very good solution for this. For example, when you think about the payment process, currently is like a low digitalization and the process is long and complex, but with using smart contract, you can make the payment like automatically. And also, for example, in the design process, normally it would have no recourse for BIM change and difficult for collaboration, but you can actually get like record everything in the blockchain. And also, for example, in supply chain process, it can solve a lot of problems like improving the information sharing and traceability. So actually my research gap are focusing on 4 parts. One is because maybe you might know that smart contract, currently smart contract are decided more isolated. So normally, for example, in the construction industry, like in the research area, people might decide the function like isolated without like thinking about the connection between each functions. And what I'm thinking is like actually, if you really want to automate like a lot of process, you should actually consider the connection between functions. And the second thing is because currently smart contracts are written as code. Sometimes because in construction, we normally, the logic is developed by stakeholder, but then the implementation should be done by developer because most of the stakeholders don't know how to code, and which is very difficult for them to verify and about all these kind of ideas and so on. And the third thing, I mean, we have already talked a lot. So like in the blockchain, we have very limited data storage. And the fourth thing is like, because in the research, when you had different like, so for different process, like a payment process, a design process, or smart contract, or supply chain process, we actually do not have a genetic concept. Like for different process, we might define or develop different smart contract. Actually, I was thinking if that possible to really make everything genetic, and then you design like a framework or a concept, but you run for all kind of different process. So that's actually my background of my research. So my research objective is to improve construction management combining BIM, blockchain, and smart contract in the technical aspect. So this is actually my overall framework. So which had actually contained 4 parts. The first one is data modeling. The second part is to generate smart contract based on, for example, a process model. And then my third part is to visualize the process by developing a system. And then in the end, has 4 simple case study. So for all the problem I had mentioned before, I actually have 3 research questions. The first one is how to combine a BIM model with smart contract for different construction phases, because currently BIM is actually a solution for many phrases, so we cannot really ignore using BIM. And then the second research question is like, how can smart contract be generated based on a decided construction process model? Because if you say we don't develop any process model, then it's actually very difficult to say like, so actually we need a kind of a standard to really like to standardize the construction process. Then I mean it's a good idea to use a process model, and then how can we like generate the smart contract based on some kind of process model. And then the third question is how to visualize the execution status of smart contract for the secure construction management. So yeah, for answering these three questions, I actually had the mapping of these three parts on my my framework. So for the research question one, data modeling, in this part, I actually had two things. The first thing is like, firstly, all the stakeholders need to think about like what kind of requirement they need for a construction project. And then they might initially create some documents like a process model, BIM model, or other related document. And then based on this document, I decided a list called process embedded smart contract list, which is actually used, it's very difficult to see here, which is actually decided for storing all the very important information and do a mapping between this kind of, maybe I put it like this way, or yeah, do a mapping between like all this kind of like process model and BIM model and other related document for one construction project. So for example, the BIM model is actually linked to the process unit, and then the BIM, the process model is linked to the process unit, and the BIM model, the important information of BIM model is actually stored in the thing called items. And for the second part of the smart contract generation, so actually I was doing a mapping from process model to smart contract code. Actually, I add something called actions. So if you see at the first step, it's called action creation and XML extension. So in this way, because normally when we think about BPMN, it's actually just like task and then coming to next task and then coming to next task. It's nothing inside. But if you were thinking, if I want to really automate some actual tasks, like if I want to do a payment, then I actually really pay instead of saying that, yeah, now I'm executing a payment task. So in this way, we were trying to add like something called action. So to really tell what kind of action this task is doing, and then to really automate the task. So yeah, this is actually the logic of making the mapping, but we don't have enough time, so I might not really talk about this. So yeah, the mapping is like firstly go from the process model and then make it into smart contract executable process model and then do the mapping. And I also developed a tool called smart contract generator to ultimately write the code. And then my third research question, to answer my third research question, this is actually the framework. So firstly, I do the data smart contract design and smart contract development, and then to do the visualization. And then in the end, maybe the system can be connected to other part like CDE or RPA, something like this. And in this system, it actually had four main components. First one is the BIM model, and then the second one is the PESCL, which I mentioned before. And then and then the BPMM actually visualized the current status of the tasks, and then the information is stored in the blockchain. And actually, I had these four cases. This is actually a implementation. So the first one is the payment case. So you can actually see that, maybe I put this here. So actually at the first part is the BPMN. And then at the right-hand side is the smart contract function, which is generated by the tool I make called smart contract generator. And then you can see at the down bottom, there's a BIM viewer, and then the building plan is actually the PESCL, and then some like blockchain information. And yeah, and normally when you, for example, in the building plan, you can actually have two buttons. One is display the status, another one is change the status. So you can really like changing the status and displaying the status of the smart contract functions. And the second case is actually quite similar. You can see actually BPMN is different, but then I'm using the same logic of this implementation. And then, yeah, it's actually very similar. And another is the BIM design. And then the final one is the claim management process. But the logic is very similar. So in conclusion, to answer the research question 1, and then I would say, so how to combine a BIM model with smart contract for different construction process, I would say, so all the BIM and process related documents are linked to the list called PESCL, and then it can directly execute in the smart contract, and all the very important information are stored in the blockchain. So you can actually have the linkage, the link between files and blockchain. And then for the research question 2, like how can smart contract be generated based on a decided construction process model? And what I had did is to develop a mapping from process model like BPMN. That's a very standard process model in construction, and to like from process model to smart contract and implement a smart contract generator. For the research question 3, how to visualize the execution status, and the solution is to display the smart contract logic and real-time status in BPM diagram with some highlighting effects. I mean, also I developed the system, and yeah. So I think that's everything I want to share. Thank you, and I would be very happy if you had any questions or any feedback. Thank you.